Hi guys, I thought I'd bring something a little bit different for you this time. I've connected with somebody called Emily Zwijak on Instagram. Her Instagram handle is That Crazy Violin Girl, and I thought it'd be really interesting just to get an insight into the life of a musician. So reading off her website, she says, Emily is a violinist, violist, cellist, music educator, figure skater, and skating coach in the Chicago area. She studied instrumental music and education and violin performance at the Chicago College of Performing Arts while studying with the renowned violinists Almita Vamos and Ming-Huang Zhu Choi. She grew up in the Chicago area where she developed a substantial passion for the violin at age 12, and she was a member of the Protégé Philharmonic Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestra and the CYSO Chamber Music Program. She served as a concert master at the Argo Community High School Honors Chamber Orchestra for 3 years, and Emily was the president of her high school orchestra council and managed an online platform representing the school's music page. She currently manages her own Instagram page where she posts engaging content, practice videos, performances, and teaching tips to show the joy and journey of learning a musical instrument. So without further ado, let's get into the Q&A with Emily. What would you say is your proudest accomplishment as a musician?
My biggest accomplishment as a violinist was being accepted to the Honors All-State Orchestra in 2020 in Illinois. It was a really huge deal to make it to All-State in general for me, let alone to make it to the Honors Ensemble. And I had made it to All-State my junior year, but I did not make the Honors Orchestra. I was in the All-State Orchestra. And so when I went my senior year for this festival, I didn't even let myself dream or imagine the idea of me being in the Honors Orchestra because it was just so impossible. It wasn't going to happen. I wasn't that good. That's what I had in my brain. I didn't even allow myself to think about it. I had completely envisioned the experience, doing lots of visualization of me making the All-State Orchestra. So when the results came out and I was 15th overall in the Honors All-State Orchestra, I was just ecstatic. It was a huge deal, and it is a feeling that I will never forget. I cried right away, and then I went to rehearsal because I was so happy.
I know I had many for different reasons in my upbringing and career so far as a musician, but who would you say has been your most influential teacher?
My most influential teacher was definitely my high school violin teacher, Mr. Matthew Mantell. He really pushed me beyond what I thought my limits were, and I had these predetermined limits where I'm like, well, I'm not capable of these certain things. I can only really push myself this far. And I feel like I'd never really been pushed before until I met him. And I remember my first lesson with him where he gave me 7 technique books that were super high level. I'm like, I'm working out of these? Like, what? And he's like, yeah, we're going to push you really hard. You want to major in music? You're going to do it. You can do it. And he believed in me right away. And I never had an adult in my life that believed in me like he did. And so from there, I worked really, really hard. He was right. I was capable. I had it in me. And then I began to see my capability. And then nothing was off limits. I could go to the stars. And I really learned to believe in myself and to try new things and to push myself because of him. And it is very much so because of him that I wanted to major in music education as well as violin performance in the first place, because I want to be that kind of role model that Mr. Mantell was for me to my students.
And if so, how has your the way that you practice changed or adapted over time?
I'm constantly changing my practice routine. I used to be very heavy on writing down the amount of time that I practice because we were told you have to practice this amount of time when I was younger and starting to practice. And I really loved it. It was beneficial for me at the time, and I liked looking back and seeing all this time I had spent with my instrument. Eventually, it became unhealthy and it wasn't working for me anymore because it was more about quantity over quality, and that's not what we want. So I started a different practice journal where I'd write down exactly what I wanted to work on each day, and that worked for some time. And as I was working through an overuse injury, I had learned another way to kind of organize my practicing by incorporating more visualization and just doing more mental practicing. So that became a big part of my life as well. And it's just something that's constantly evolving.
Something that's a massive skill as a musician, but I'd be really interested to hear about what you do and how you go about covering up mistakes when you make them, particularly in a performance.
I am a musician, but I'm also a figure skater, and in all these kinds of art forms, we always make mistakes. It is really, really hard to have a perfectly clean performance, and even when it is us playing to the best of our ability, is it perfect? No, there's always going to be mistakes in there. So yeah, everybody makes mistakes all the time, constantly. I don't think we really talk about it or think about it, but there are mistakes everywhere. We just learn in life to keep going on despite them. So you learn how to artistically cover up mistakes. In all these art forms, right? Whether it's skating or whether it's music, there are little tricks, and you learn to get a little bit of a poker face so you don't make that smirk on stage when you mess up, and you don't let it get in your head to stop you from working hard and finishing the rest of the piece to the best of your ability. You learn to live with the mistakes, not to dwell on them.
So, who is your favourite violinist?
My favorite violinist is probably Hilary Hahn. I think she is the perfect mixture of technical ability and performance ability combined.
What do you feel is your greatest strength as a musician?
My biggest strength as a violinist is my determination. I always work through any extreme circumstance that is presented to me to get the job done. I'm constantly working hard and working towards my goals.
So what would you say was your biggest weakness as a violinist or musician?
My biggest weakness as a violinist is that I just cannot practice in the evening time, which is very unfortunate because most of the way schedules are organized, you don't really have a lot of time in the morning to practice either. But that is the time where I get the best work done. So if I could practice more in the evening, that would be great, but I do not get my best work done. It's in the morning, so I usually have to shuffle around my schedule to accommodate for the fact that I cannot get productive practice time done in the evening.
Who would you most like to collaborate with?
If I could collaborate with anyone in the music community, I'm not pinpointing anybody specific, but I would want to collaborate with all the women that have spoken up about abuse that they've endured in the industry. I would just love to do a huge project with all of us, empowering one another and making it a safer space for women.
Now, I think this is the one that everybody wants to hear because people have so many different things that they do, but have you got any pre-concert or performance rituals that you do?
My pre-performance rituals are kind of strange to some people. I'd always been told by my teachers and everybody else, eat a banana before you go on stage because it has potassium, which helps calm you down. But I get so nervous that my body kind of shuts down. So when I would eat a banana before I'd be going in for an audition or for a performance, my body would feel so weak. And that was affecting my ability to, I wasn't having the adrenaline I needed to be able to perform to the best of my ability. So I started eating a chocolate bar each time before I would perform. And that works for me. So every time I have an audition, a performance, whatever, I usually get either a full-size Hershey bar or a bunch of mini ones. And I'll as much as I feel that I need, I will eat some of that.
If you were a musician, what would you be?
If I wasn't a musician, I think I would probably be a veterinarian because I really, really love animals, all kinds of animals. And that's what I had planned that I was going to do for my life. And I knew that for a long period of time until I was 1 year into playing violin. And I realized when somebody told me, you could major in music. This could be your career. And I was like, wait, it can? That's a thing? Because I didn't grow up. I was the only musician. I didn't grow up around other musicians. So I was like, oh, then yeah, I'm going to do this as my career. And it was. And I knew from that point forward it was. So all before that, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I probably would have been a veterinarian. But now, if I was switching my career now, I would probably do a focus on figure skating because I do have this education degree and a lot of it works in that figure skating world as well.
So we've all got one, so tell us about your worst performance ever.
Was when I was 2 years into playing violin and I was playing Chardas with soloing with my junior high orchestra, and we were actually playing in a nursing home for people, and it didn't matter that it was more of a laid back environment and we were just there to make some music for people and weren't being judged. It wasn't competitive. I still wanted to do really, really well. And I decided to try without my music. And I forgot the last 8 measures. And I just paused and froze. And then the orchestra finished the piece. And I tried to just be casual. And it was really hard. I really beat myself up after that. And the ironic thing is that we had another performance following it. And it was supposed to be at an elementary school. And my director was like, okay, you got to have the music in front of you. And I was like, no, I want to prove I can do this. And she was like, no, you need to have the music in front of you. You're not ready. And so I went up there to play, and I had, we're traveling to schools and playing for them in this elementary school. We're crammed in this area. It's a big area, but there's so many kids. And so my music stand is right there, and I'm standing there, and there are kids sitting right there, very little kids. And this one girl was sitting crisscross applesauce and moved her foot, and she kicked the stand. And I also, speaking of mistakes, I also made the mistake of not only putting my solo music on the stand, I put all of my music on the stand. So when the stand fell down, all the music just went everywhere. And I had this little voice in my head saying, keep going. And so I tried to catch it, and I was like, I just went and kept playing. And then the director and another teacher tried to pick it up and get it set back up. And then eventually they were like, nah, they saw I was already playing. So they were just like, whatever. And I finished the rest of the piece. And where that 8 measure section was that I messed up, I knew I was not going to mess that up this time. I knew the mistake I made because I went back and I saw what I did. And I didn't make that mistake. And I got a huge standing ovation, round of applause. Everybody was so impressed with my ability. And I remember my orchestra director, I still talk to her this day, and she was like, next is Carnegie Hall. And just those high hopes for me. It's a performance I won't forget.
And finally, do you have any future goals as a musician?
My future goals as a violinist and educator are to teach a high school or middle school orchestra program. I really, really want to be doing that. I have a bunch of things I love. I mean, I love private music lessons. I teach various instruments, primarily violin, but various instruments. I love music theory. I teach music theory lessons. I used to have a music theory podcast, so I love just to continue research and things in that field. I'm a figure skater, so I'd like to keep skating, and I'm also a coach. I'd like to keep coaching for sure down the line. I think those levels of like coaching and teaching are very similar. I love performing. I love playing in orchestras. I think that's something that's always going to be a part of my life. I want to continue playing in orchestras. And I like podcasting, so I want to keep doing our Dissonant Dialogues podcast that we have and advocating for people in the community, like women, and just going forward with a variety of things tied to what's important to me in the music world.
I hope you've enjoyed this Q&A with Emily. I found it really, really interesting hearing another musician's viewpoint, and she's got some really interesting and lovely and worthwhile stories to tell and to listen to, and advice for all of us as musicians. So I hope you enjoyed what she had to say as much as I did. Stay tuned, and if you like this, I'll look at doing some more. See you later.